So I'm going to start with a pretty loaded question for the two of you. What is interaction analytics?
I'll have a go at that.
Go on.
So it was quite interesting. So I remember the first time that I started working in a contact centre was about 15 years ago. I was it wasn't too far from here actually. It was in Pudsey in Green Flag House. And I was working in the planning team. We were doing some like capacity planning models and things. And I'll always remember the ops director saying a call coming down for some work, and he said, I want to know why a customer's calling. And I thought that was really interesting. I'd worked in kind of credit risk before, marketing, all these types of things. And I remember thinking to myself, we're working like in a huge contact centre and we don't know why the customers are calling. Why? And then when I started to dig a little bit deeper around it and look at like all of the granular levels of data, what uncovered was there's so much data, there's so much information, and it's so fast paced. It's really, really difficult to understand like the root cause of like why are customers calling, the intents, why are they going wrong, and then what you can do to fix them. And those kind of 3 to 6 months that I was in that kind of role, it was like a vortex of like trying to get up to speed as to like how you could get on top of this problem. And at that point speech analytics had just started to creep in, but I helped develop a tool which was effectively just a dispositioning tool. It was like an access database that sat on your desktop, which was like, this was the reason one for customer calling, this was the sub reason, all these types of things. And I think from that, that's now kind of ballooned into what we now class as interaction analytics, and it's evolved over time. Speech analytics very quickly came after that, but the problem there was the quality of the data was pretty poor. So the speech transcription was kind of, in my opinion, kind of oversold, and a lot of money was spent on speech analytics or interaction analytics, and not much got done with it. There's a few really, really great proponents of it who've done like really, really great things over time with semi-archaic technology, but it never really got anywhere. And then over time, from a technological point of view, I think you started to see some more interesting things happening on chat and chatbot, where you had cleaner customer conversations because they didn't have to go through transcription. You could start to do some really interesting things using natural language processing, like really delving into kind of the root causes of issues, sentiment analysis and stuff like that. In fact, actually, just going back a step, one of the interesting things was when speech analytics first came in, actually the more interesting thing was the acoustic analytics, where it was silence and talk over time. Yeah, silence time and talk over time. So people go, yeah, forget about the transcripts, let's look at the silence and talk over. And now actually with, I think, the migration to cloud, first of all having more capacity to really, really quickly conduct analytics, and then the increasing quality when it comes to transcription accuracy, you're now starting to see the real benefits that were probably sold like 10 years ago starting to come into effect. And now we're seeing the value in like multiple different areas. So when it comes to pure interaction analytics, I think one of the least interesting is why a customer's calling, because you get that straight away now, and yeah, you can migrate some demand to my account, or you can maybe push off some automation or do some IVR self-serve. But I think it's very, very quickly got into some more interesting things, which is around first of all auto summarization, so transcribing the call and summarizing at the end. I think this is a newer kind of capability, but it's so much quicker, better, cheaper than a human doing it. I think there's huge amounts of value. You've then got all of the auto QA elements, so taking your old quality assurance scorecards and then automating them, and then I think you're looking at FCA regulated companies, consumer duty, vulnerability detection. A big one for me is we've just presupposed that humans are really good at displaying empathy and identifying vulnerability, and they're not. They're terrible. Like, I'm bad because like I'm way up on the spectrum. Like, and I don't hear the excuse. And I was like a pretty good person on the phones, or so I thought. So the average person with all of the screens, it's very, very difficult to detect those types of stuff. So it's going beyond just the analytics, but also like prompting back into the agents that this customer might be vulnerable. Don't try and sell and things like that, and doing more like safe selling practices. And then on and on, we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, the more advancements where we'll go into artificial intelligence, like basically being able to do the full conversation, either through a quite simple interaction, like maybe like a payment, all the way to like a complex kind of thing, something like perhaps like, it's a bit unfortunate, but like in pensions, maybe someone's passed away, and how do you go through a complex process where, sometimes we've perhaps thought that a human to human interaction is the best, but perhaps maybe a human to AI, if you can give it all the tools, is better at doing that from a customer point of view. So that's kind of the journey of interaction analytics from the way I see it, and where it's going in the future.
I'd say, so for me, interaction analytics in its simplest form, you're adding structure to unstructured data. So voice and calls, you've got emails, text messages. Historically, what that was, the way to understand what was happening was to strap on a set of headphones, or read your emails, start to classify the data manually, and ultimately it's quite a laborious process. Interaction analytics applies a structure to that and labels the data to enable you to use it in many different ways, whether that is from understanding why customers are calling, or from, am I being compliant? What behaviours are driving a better conversion for sales or collections environments? And in its most basic form, that's what interaction analytics does for us.
Right, okay, so it's kind of taking the labour out of getting a full picture of what's going on in your contact centre.
That's a really good way to summarise it, I think.